Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Potential Unleashed. We have One Piece chapter 1066. It is titled, actually, I don't remember what it's titled. I think it's The Will of Ohara. Now, I will say this. I got spoiled for something that happened at the end of the chapter. Typically, I don't get spoiled when it comes to One Piece chapter reviews. Now, I'm a little bit upset because it wasn't a big spoiler, but it kind of was a big spoiler. There was a lot of stuff that happened in this chapter, a lot of information specifically about the Void Century. That's not what I got spoiled on, but the thing towards the end about a specific giant returning, right, I got spoiled on that, so I'm a little bit sad about that. But if you guys enjoy regular chapter reviews, make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you guys never miss out on a new video. And with that out of the way, my name is Potential Unleashed, and let's get into the review. So in the last chapter, there was a big giant robot-like thing where Vegapunk stated that in the past that the ancient city, they had something that was very futuristic 800 years ago, where a lot of people are like, yo, like, what's going on? Specifically Robin, she's like, are you saying that machinery was in the Void Century? Where Vegapunk does end up confirming this, because this is what the scholars of Ohara, they were searching after, and this is what they were dealing with before they got wiped out by the world government. So what we now know is that there was a conflict between the world government, or an alliance of 20 nations, and the Forgotten Advanced Kingdom. And then in the future, those 20 nations ended up forming the world government and shaping the history that we know of it, right? And so to assure that the ideals of this ancient kingdom didn't live on, well, they erased it from history. So this means that the world government definitely is trying to cover up what the ideals of this ancient kingdom is, and what all existence about it. Now, I'm not saying that the ancient kingdom is necessarily good or necessarily bad, but this means that they did something that opposed the world government, or opposed those 20 nations that they didn't believe in, and now the world government is trying to cover it up. So I want to know what those they actually did, and like why the world government is trying to cover up or went against them in the first place. What were they conflicting over? And this also has to deal with, like, what does Joy Boy have to do with this? What does Emu? What does Denisha and all these characters that were around during the Void Century, or have some relevance to that? What is their importance now? The ancient weapons, a lot of stuff. And I wonder if the ancient weapons were used in this war, right? A lot of questions have been came to the forefront of my mind after reading this chapter, where Vegapunk, I guess Shaka, basically says, you know, anybody that knows this information is gonna get killed. And I love the Straw Hat's reaction. They're like, well, why the heck are you telling us this? And Usopp's like, brain. He's like, forget. Right, I find that really cool, where Vegapunk basically said that this isn't necessarily the truth, right? We don't know all this information. However, you can speculate based off of your own research that this is the likely output of what, like, the scholars came up with. And Robin's like, yeah, you know, the scholars, they did devise this theory based off of this. And, you know, Robin was like, well, if you work for the world government, then how do you know, like, all of this? And Vegapunk was like, well, I know this because I did the research, and this is all speculation, right? The government, even though I'm one of their dogs, they have me on a leash where they don't tell me everything. So this is all speculation. We're finding that cool, because we later find out in the chapter, I mean, we found out a little bit last chapter, but definitely in this one, more about Vegapunk and Dragon's relationship. But we do find out that the Will of Ohara lives on, because we found out that Professor Clover, he had an obsession with traveling the world and learning more about history and stuff like that, where he became the most famous scholar, or the most famous archaeologist, where he had a relationship with Vegapunk. So Vegapunk thought that it would be best to go to Ohara and pay his respects to Professor Clover, where Vegapunk ended up finding something. Remember during Robin's flashbacks, the scholars, after the bus call happened, the Marines were going away, the scholars like, yo, we gotta save these books, we gotta protect these books, throw them into the water. Apparently Vegapunk went and looked, and there was a bunch of there were a bunch of books that were in the lakes in order to be preserved. Now, personally, like, based off of logic, I know this is anime and it's One Piece, but to me it makes sense that, like, these books, if they're in water, especially if they're written, because they aren't typed, and if they're written with, like, pen and ink and stuff like that, technically if they're in the lake, then those books should be I guess like the ink should run on the paper. At least that's what makes sense to me, but hey, it is what it is. It's anime. So these people, all the hard work that they put in was saved because the books were in the water, where Vegapunk's like, yo, some people in the Marines, they probably don't understand how valuable they are, but anybody who does or knows anything about being a scholar or history or stuff like that understands how important they are, and Vegapunk wanted to go read them. However, they were met by somebody else, and the person they were met by is Dragon. Dragon, at this age, he's the head of the freedom fighters. They're not necessarily known as the Revolutionary Army yet. He's only 33, where Vegapunk here is the head of Punk Hazard Laboratory, and they are 43 years old, where they have a different relationship, because basically Dragon's like, yo, like, you should have worked with me, you should, because Vegapunk only works the world government because they have the funds in order to accomplish his research. So Vegapunk, he really would want to work with Dragon. We know that he has an affiliation with Dragon, and so Dragon's like, well, why don't you work with me? And obviously because Dragon doesn't have the money or the influence yet in order to make a difference in the world. So Vegapunk can't work with him because, well, he's not going to be able to do anything, right? He can't invent because Dragon's broke. Where we find out that this is why, or one of the reasons why Dragon wants to change the world, because he says the will of Ohara won't die with Clover. And then within a year, Ivankov, Bartholomew Kuma, and others founded the Revolutionary. I found that really dope. I also want to mention that there were giants. They were the ones that were taking the books out of the ocean, right? And they headed back to Elbaf, right? Which, this is very important because I wonder, well, first off, we already know we're going to go to Elbaf eventually, because Dory and Groggy, the people from Little Garden, they're from there. There was some giants in Ennis Lobby as well. And Usopp wants to go there as well. And we speculate that this is Shanks' territory. So them having the books from Ohara, this is another reason why it's important for us to go to Elbaf, right? So this is another reason, or gives more incentives. And this is also why I think Elbaf is definitely going to be the next arc that we go to. I feel like this is going to be a mini arc. Definitely only going to be like 40 or 50 chapters here, maybe even less than that. But I want to mention that Vegapunk read all the books, and he's like, yo, like, I understand the research that they did. The will of Ohara still lives. We also find out there's somebody who led the giants there, covered in bandages, and this is where I was spoiled at. We actually found out that Jaguar D Saul is still alive, and he was the one to coordinate to get the books to Ohara. So that's pretty cool. I'm really happy about that, because we know Aokiji's not a bad person. Aokiji, he was the one who, I guess you could say, froze him, right? Potentially unfroze him, and we know that, like, Aokiji, his sense of justice is, it's more, I feel like the two people I love in the Marines are Aokiji and Fujitora. I feel like their sense of justice is good. They do stuff do stuff that they believe is right. Like, he let Nico Robin go, let the Straw Hats go, etc. Right? I love Aokiji, so I'm happy that he didn't end up killing Saul. Then we cut to Luffy's group. This is the last part of the chapter. There is a old man that is stuck inside of, or on, the robot thingamabob, and Luffy ends up pulling him out, where Boney, she reacts, and he calls him the son of dragon, or your dragon's boy, and Luffy's a little confused, right? Where Boney obviously is furious because Vegapunk turned what's his face, Kuma, her father, into the cyborg lost all of her emotions. And so Vegapunk is introduced. Vegapunk looks like a crazy old man, and this is honestly what I truly thought Vegapunk was going to look like. So Oda did not disappoint. I mean, obviously I didn't know exactly, but this, if I were to like come up with like a rough image in my head, this would probably be what it is. Vegapunk looks kind of weird. He has like an apple over his head, his tongue sticking out. He's kind of crazy, says some weird stuff, not gonna lie. But overall, I like his design. I think this is perfect for him. Now, I will say that this chapter, it gave a lot of information, especially about the Void Sentry, about Ohara, and about Vegapunk and his intentions, and more a little bit about Dragon as well, which I'm really happy about. I don't think there's a break next week. I'm not sure. And if there is, I wouldn't have been surprised because of how they ended the chapter. And if there's not a break next week, then it will probably definitely be a week after. But overall, it was a really solid chapter. One of the information heavy chapters, no action really in it, which are technically some of the chapters that I like, right? I think you need it in order to understand the flow of the story. I'm really happy we didn't get everything, but we definitely got a snippet about what's going on and with the Void Sentry and why the world government is trying to hide everything. So I give this chapter probably about a 9 out of 10. But let me know your guys' thoughts about it in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also hit the notification bell so you guys never saw a new video from me. Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and TikTok is on the screen and in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to unleash your potential.